They said bombs won World War II, but it was factory workers who built them, who forged the planes, who welded the ships. Without their hands, victory would have been impossible. These were the factory workers of World War II. Women in scarves, men too old for the front, hands blistered, backs breaking, keeping the war alive one shift at a time. Propaganda posters urged them on, loose lips sink ships. Keep it under your hat, and Rosie the Riveter flexing her arm promising, we can do it. Some said they were ordinary people, but history knows better. Without them, victory would have been impossible. Before we begin, if you truly enjoy these stories, hitting like and subscribe helps me keep making them, and hopefully helps you keep drifting off. Let me know when and where you're listening from tonight. I'm always amazed by the places people tune in. Now, get comfortable, take a slow breath in, and then let it out, because once this story begins, chances are you'll be asleep before it ends. It's the year 1943. The Second World War is in its fourth bruising year, and the home front has become a front line of its own. Automobile plants now turn out tanks, bombers and engines. Shipyards launch new hulls in weeks instead of months. Ration books, blackout curtains and propaganda posters shape daily life as surely as air raid sirens. Women fill 1/3 to 1/2 of many shop floors, learning to rivet, weld and run presses once reserved for men. On paper it's production targets and tonnage. In real life it's cold mornings, thin bread, sore hands and a whistle that rules the day. The alarm clock rattles like a small tin drum on the nightstand. You reach through darkness because blackout curtains still swallow the room long after dawn. Your fingers find the switch and the bell still echoes in your bones. For a heartbeat you can't tell whether it's too late or too early. In wartime, mornings begin in midnight. Air in the bedroom bites your cheeks. The coal stove downstairs went out hours ago. Fuel is rationed, and firelight is for evenings when the damp sinks into bone. Your breath ghosts in the cold as you push back a blanket patched more times than you can count. Threads catch against your fingers like tiny barbs, proof of careful mending stretched over careful months. Floorboards creak under your heels. You pause and listen because everyone pauses and listens now. No sirens, no distant droning, only the city's low murmur gathering itself for another shift. Somewhere a milk cart rattles across cobbles and the horse puffs steam into the dark. You strike a match in the hall and shield the flame with your palm. Light in wartime is something to cradle, not splash. The tiny circle of gold leads you to the kitchen where the window is pinned tight with thick cloth. Even the seams are taped so no sliver can slip out and bring a warden's knock. The ration book sits in its usual place by the radio, brown cover soft at the edges. Inside, rows of coupons march in strict formation. Meat, fats, sugar, tea, clothing, soap. You run a thumb along the perforations and add up breakfast the way clerks add up ledgers. Spend a sugar stamp today and the tin will be empty by Sunday. Spend a bacon stamp this week and there's nothing left for the holiday. Kettle to the hob. A careful twist of gas and one precious match. The flame lifts in a blue whisper and breath begins to thaw from your hands. On the table waits the national loaf, grey-shouldered and honest as a brick. A heel slice crumbles under the knife like damp sand. Margarine spreads in a pale, reluctant sheen. It tastes of effort more than of butter. Still, it slicks the crumbs enough to hold them together. You chew and think not of flavour but of fuel. Food has become a unit, like inches or hours. The kettle sighs. You tip reused leaves back into the pot because they still surrender a suggestion of tea. Steam fogs the pinned window and beads along the tape like dew on hedgerow. 2 mugs on the table make a kind of ceremony. Ceremony matters when sugar doesn't. From the stair, the floorboard you know by heart complains. Your mother appears tying her scarf in a practiced triangle. She hums the middle of a song the whole country knows by now. A soft bar of "We'll Meet Again" runs its thread through the quiet like mending floss through wool. She checks the lunch pail you set out last night. Spam between thin bread. A bruised apple that will still crunch if you eat around the brown. 1 hard candy in waxed paper like a secret stored for later. She snaps the latch shut with the care of someone sealing a promise. You dress by habit more than by choice. Work trousers patched at the knees with a square from a cousin's skirt. Blouse with misfit buttons that stepped in for losses long ago. Cardigan darned at both elbows until the darning is more elbow than knit. Clean is the luxury that matters most. The soap got you this far. Warm water would have been a dream too dear. The scarf is last. Fold, tuck, pull, knot. You smooth the tail at your nape the way the safety poster shows. Hair pinned, ends tight, nothing loose to kiss a belt. In the glass above the sink, a stranger stares back for a second. Older across the mouth, steadier around the eyes. You lift your chin until she looks like someone who can lift a day. Boots by the door hold the memory of yesterday's floor. The leather's creases map the places where weight always falls. You snug your feet home and tug laces through eyelets that bite. Double knot. Everyone double knots now. It started as a story about a girl and a press and a loose lace. Stories travel faster than trains and stick harder than glue. Small rituals become armour. On the mantel, the photograph waits in its chipped frame. Uniform, cap at a careful angle. A smile that learned to be brave after the shutter clicked. Your finger finds the glass the way pilgrims find a saint's toe. Work well, the touch says. Come home, the touch answers. You draw the bolt and open the door. Cold walks in first. Outside smells like wet stone and coal smoke and the inside of a glove. From one end of the street to the other, doors open like eyelids. People spill out with pails and thermoses and the heavy quiet of those who will not waste talk before the whistle. The black tape cross on the window pane looks like a shadow on a sundial. It reminds you that glass can become a weapon and that even sunlight must mind its manners. You pull the door to and hear the latch take like a small decision. The house is a pocket you must leave if the war is to be fed. Your feet learn the morning's first rhythm. Pavement offers its cold up through soles thinned by months of standing. Every 4th step finds the shallow heave where the cobble sits wrong and you correct for it without looking. 2 streets over, somewhere you can't see, a harmonica tries "Roll Out the Barrel" and misses once, then laughs and finds the note. By the bakery a queue has already bent itself round the corner. Ration books open like prayer missals in woolen hands. The chalkboard offers truth without ornament, national loaf, turnips, powdered egg, limited tea. A child presses her nose to the glass where chocolate used to live and fogs a circle around absence. Her mother taps 2 fingers on the ration pages the way wardens tap blackout seams. Lessons travel early in a war. Posters watch from brick and hoarding. A woman in coveralls shows her bicep with a calm you borrow. A cartooneer leans toward gossip and the caption lies in wait. Loose lips sink ships. Another promises you can knit victory from kitchen fat and string. Painted colour argues with the city's grey and wins by stubbornness alone. Mrs. Hollis falls in beside you with her thermos tucked like a baby, and her boy 1 step behind. His coat rides his wrists and his boots ride his heels because growing doesn't wait for coupons. He yawns hard enough to bend his hat brim and she smooths it while walking without looking. Mothers can do 3 jobs with 2 hands when the clock says they must. You trade the talk everyone trades between one lamppost and the next. Onions finally up in the Victory Garden. The old man on the corner swapping bacon stamps for tea. The warden's latest lecture about slivers of light like blades. A rumour from a letter about Sicily. Rumours are the only thing not rationed and the only thing never in short supply. A cart rolls by heaped with scrap. Pots without handles, a pram without a wheel, the iron railings from a stoop that looks naked without them. Children chase the tailboard as if a parade has come to town. The driver calls, "All in the fight!" and for a second the street believes him. You pass the grocer where a sign inside the window asks, "Is your journey really necessary?" Another at the till explains how to render kitchen drippings for collection. Jars line a crate like squat soldiers waiting for deployment. Nothing is waste if the ministry can find a use for it. Back at your shoulder, your mother's scarf knot sits square and stern. She has tied that knot around laundry, babies, secrets, and now a job that eats hours like a furnace eats coal. She squeezes your wrist once and lets go because letting go is victory enough before sunrise. The whistle reaches you before you see the gates. Low, long, not a question. The street answers by walking faster without being asked. Boots learn to clip their consonants to make time. Smokestacks draw black ladders on a pale sky. The factory hunches behind its brick like a thing that prefers to be fed than admired. Guards at the entrance hold passes like priests hold prayer cards. Signs do the talking no one else needs to do. Keep it under your hat. Don't talk about what you see here. Careless talk costs lives. Words in capitals travel straight into the spine. You fish your pass from your pocket where it lives with a stub of pencil and a bent hairpin. The paper's corners are softened by 100 mornings and your name has learned to look official. The guard's eyes hop from photograph to face and then away again. His nod returns your breath to you like a loan you promise to repay. Inside the yard, the factory's weather swallows the ordinary sort. Heat pushes against you even in winter. Oil writes its name in the air and on your tongue. Trucks grunt under crates stenciled with codes, and forklifts nose forward like bulls. Somewhere behind the brick a torch catches and throws a bouquet of sparks into the day. You adjust your scarf, test the double knot at your laces and take the lunch pail's handle into your palm. The metal is already cold enough to make your fingers smart. A foreman near the door checks names against a list without looking up. His pencil makes fast black weather across the paper. He smells like tobacco and impatience. At the threshold the sound swells from loud to total. Hammers, presses, belts, fans, 100 engines layered until they are one thing. Heat follows sound and light follows heat. Buzzing tubes above, welding flares below, day turned into a map of white and orange. The floor trembles as if some giant heart has learned a hard, necessary song. You breathe once more in the doorway because breath counts here. Then you step forward because stepping forward is the only real choice. Street gives way to shop. Cold gives way to heat. Quiet gives way to work. Another day of the war begins in the place where war is made from hands. Steam feathers the pinned curtain and beads along the tape like rain on a ship's porthole. You tilt the kettle to catch the last honest boil before the flame must be pinched to a whisper. Gas is not rationed on paper the way sugar is, but everyone rations it anyway, the way you ration breath when running uphill. The kitchen is a small theatre of wartime grace. Everything has its place because everything must pull its weight. Tin for spent matches, jar for bacon drippings, enamel bowl for crumbs, a shoebox of string, rubber bands, and twist of wire that could hold a world together for another week. You measure tea as if it were medicine. The leaves are tired, steeped yesterday, dried on a saucer overnight, brave enough for a second tour. They still surrender colour and a ghost of tannin. You pour sparingly, letting the thread of amber catch the cup's lip like sunlight slipping through clouds. The national loaf waits, square-shouldered and unashamed. It has the reliable weight of a brick and the modesty of dust. Knife down, heel off, crumbs gather like filings to a magnet. You spread margarine thin enough to see the bread's rough skin beneath it. It glistens like discipline rather than luxury. Your mother counts coupons the way a priest counts beads. One for fats, one for sugar if there is any to sweeten Sunday. Blue points, red points, dates stamped like marching orders. She licks a fingertip and turns the page to the place where your household ledger lives, pencil notches against each family name. Tea now, coffee later if the week behaves, she says without looking up. Coffee came with a fuss and left with one. People stirred roasted barley into it or chicory and called it a taste of New Orleans. Your tongue called it nearly. You nod and cradle your mug all the same. Heat is a kind of flavour. The radio wakes on its second try. A throat of static, a cough of tone, then a voice clipped enough to cut bread with. Convoys, weather over the channel. Something small about Sicily that sounds large in the pauses. He moves on briskly as if news were a floor sweep you shouldn't step in. When music slides in after, the kitchen changes shape. A gram of Vera Lynn can lift a room as surely as yeast lifts dough. Your mother hums under her breath and her eyes shine without wetness. Hope knows how to be thrifty too. Breakfast is arithmetic. 2 slices each, crusts saved for croutons. Though you don't say croutons, you say fried bread cubes like a person who keeps their feet on the ground. Jam is a suggestion painted thin enough to read the bread through it. Dried egg will be for a pudding tonight if it sets. If it doesn't, it will be called custard and loved anyway. You pass the sugar tin down the table and then pull it back again without opening. There is resolve in not lifting a lid. Restraint is a word the ministry uses. You prefer steadiness. It feels more like standing next to someone you love and less like standing in a queue. The ration book sits open between you like a family Bible. Names, numbers, the testimony of careful weeks. You remember when the inspector came last month and paged through it with fingers that smelled of ink. He nodded at neat columns as if good penmanship could shore up the Atlantic. Perhaps it can. Last night's pamphlet from the Ministry of Food lies under the breadboard. Stretching a roast without roasting your patience. You smirk and read the bullet points aloud. Breadcrumbs, oats, carrot mince, mock goose if you convince the lentils. Your mother taps the page where someone has penciled "add time if you can find it," as if time were a cousin expected at any minute. She spoons you a second half cup of tea and scrapes the leaves from the pot into a saucer to dry again. Waste is the enemy that never sleeps, an enemy you can defeat every day. It is good to have an enemy you can defeat. Between bites, the small chores march. You wind string from an old parcel onto a bobbin. She peels last night's potato skins from a plate and sets them aside. Fried, they will become crispings, the sort of snack that makes the radio funnier. Bones are knuckled into the stock pot with onion ends that smell like stubbornness. On the chair by the stove, your cardigan waits to be amended. Mend is too small a word for the work these needles do. You catch a ladder in the knit and weave it back into something like trust. Each pull of the yarn is another inch of winter you won't feel. A soft rap at the window becomes Mrs. Hollis's face framed in frost. She lifts a jar and points to it like a prize. Grease, rendered and clear as amber. You open the door and she passes it in with 2 hands like a christening. "I'll drop it with the butcher on the way," she says. "Bombs out of breakfast," you answer, and she laughs once, short and true. The boy with her hovers at the step, blinking sleep from his lashes. He tries to look like a man who isn't trying. Your mother, who has no patience for pretending, hands him the paper cone of tea leaves to carry. "Treasure," she says, and he straightens because treasure is something you guard with your shoulders, not your words. You portion out today's butter substitute with a knife touched to the scale's tongue. The needle wobbles between fairness and favour. You hold your breath until it learns the lesson. "Save the nice bit for Sunday," your mother says. You nod. Sundays need saving too. In the cupboard, a tin of cocoa glints like a coin. You hardly ever open it. You like knowing it is there more than you like tasting it. The future needs something to step toward, even if it is small and brown and only enough for one winter's night after a very good day. The radio begins a comedy you've heard enough to recite in your sleep. Jokes land lightly and then deeper, like snow that decides to stay. Your mother stitches on the laugh lines and you fold it away to take with you, a warm scrap in a pocket that will leak heat slowly across the afternoon. A clatter in the lane draws your eyes to the pinned curtain. You lift a corner the width of 2 fingers and peep at daylight shaped by rules. A warden's cap nods past. He checks door frames for slivers the way men at the front check seams for leaks. Your window is tight as a fist. You feel approved and strangely comforted. You clean the plates with a small square of bread and share the square. 2 bites and the plate shines like honesty. Scraps go to the enamel tin with the hinged lid that clicks shut like a promise not to waste. Promises are a kind of currency. You pay them forward in quiet rooms where no one is keeping score and everyone is. The lunch pail waits open on the table like a mouth learning patience. Spam sandwich folded in greaseproof. Apple wrapped in last week's news about weather over the channel. You will eat the weather if you must. The hard candy set in its wax paper like a jewel. You press each thing in with a palm so it will ride steady when the factory shudders. Clothing coupons live in an envelope stamped with your name. You thumb them and then put them back. You will not spend a single one today. New costs more than mending and doesn't feel half as brave. The pins in your scarf are stronger than any button if you ask them well and tie the knot like you mean it. Your mother reads a letter aloud without saying whose it is. Somewhere hot, somewhere with dust that finds your eyelids. He says the sky's too big where he is, and the nights are noisy with insects that don't know about blackouts. Plenty of tea, he wrote, but it tastes wrong without the smell of coal. You fold the page twice, then once more, until it fits under the sugar tin where you will not forget it, and will not see it too often. A draft finds its way under the door and kisses your ankles. You think of the coal box, 3 hunks left, a scatter of grit. Tonight you will spend 2 and pretend it is 1. Numbers always add more kindly in the dark. You set the kettle back on, not to boil but to warm. Pouring hot into thermoses is a trick learned from older hands. You keep heat where heat keeps you. The lid squeaks when it closes and the sound is satisfyingly final. Another little certainty in a day that will manufacture mostly uncertain things. On the wall, a chart records the week's meals like a flight plan. Monday stew, Tuesday hash, Wednesday soup thickened with barley that behaves like a hero if you give it time. Thursday fish when fish can be had. otherwise Thursday courage, Friday pudding made of promises and dried egg, Saturday odds and ends pie that tastes better than the name looks, Sunday loud with aroma even if quiet with meat. You draw your coat around your shoulders and it remembers you. Clothes remember. They hold the shape of days the way a pillow holds the shape of a head. You tie your scarf without looking and it lands like a seal stamped in wax. Approved, protected, prepared. The mugs clink as you set them in the sink with water that is not yet warm and will not be for a while. You lay a cloth over the bread to keep it from going hard in a house that makes a sport of hard. The radio voice returns to read names, not of people, but of ships and places and bills and votes. You turn the knob a breath to the left so the voice becomes a hum that sounds like a cat asleep. Your mother checks the pins in the blackout again, though morning is honest light now. Habit is a scaffold. You climb it without thinking because it holds. She touches your cheek with the back of her fingers and then wipes the touch away like a smudge she is proud to have left. You look around the kitchen one last time the way you look around a room before setting out on a long walk. Everything in its place, everything ready to be exactly itself when you return. The house will pass the day as you pass the day, by doing the work in front of it until the whistle lets go. When you open the door, the light outside is thin and dutiful. Your breath makes its little cloud and then collapses. You lift the pail, square your shoulders, and step into a morning that tastes faintly of coal and tea leaves. The blackout curtain rustles behind you and settles back into its patient guard. You close the door as softly as you can, because softness is a skill worth practicing. The house is still grey with early light when you climb the stairs again. The kettle's warmth lingers in your palms, but now the real preparation begins. Clothing is not just fabric in wartime, it is protection. It is uniform. It is another form of rationing worn on your skin. Your work trousers wait on the chair, patched with square after square. The knees are darker where cloth from an uncle's jacket was sewn in. The seams are thick, uneven, but strong enough to kneel beside a press or crouch by a crate. Every stitch is a reminder that new is impossible, but useful is always possible. The blouse buttons crooked, each fastener borrowed from another shirt. You slip your arms through anyway. It smells faintly of soap and coal, the scent of clean in a house where clean is a victory. When you tug the cardigan on, you feel the ridge of darned elbows, the yarn stiff from too much mending. The wool scratches, but it is warm enough to keep muscle steady when the floor grows damp with steam. On the wall hangs the scarf, bright once, dulled now. You fold it carefully, tucking the ends flat against your neck. The posters inside the factory show girls with hair tied tight. Cheerful smiles under bold letters. Don't let loose ends endanger lives. You obey not because the posters told you to, but because you've seen what happens when cloth kisses a gear. It takes seconds to be swallowed. You double pin until you feel the prick through the cloth and skin. Pain is better than accident. Beside the sink waits the mirror, its silvering spotted. In it you look not for beauty but for safety. Hair pinned high, scarf tied firm, nothing loose. Your reflection looks older than the girl who first tried this knot. Older, but steadier too. You nod at her as if she were a comrade. Boots wait by the door. They are stiff. Leather cracked along the bend. You slide into them and tug the laces tight, the eyelets creaking under strain. You double knot without thinking. It has become ritual. You remember the story. A girl who tripped, lace caught, and the press took her fingers. Whether the story is true doesn't matter. What matters is the knot. Every worker ties it the same way. A small act of defense against machines that never forgive. On the mantel stands the photograph in its chipped frame. A man in uniform, hat cocked at a brave tilt, smile a little uncertain. You touch the glass with one finger, the way pilgrims touch relics. It is not prayer exactly, but it is something like it. The gesture says, "Come back." The gesture says, "I will work well enough to help bring you back." Your mother ties her own scarf behind you, her fingers moving with the speed of the long practice. She glances once at your knot and adjusts it tighter without comment. Then she reaches for the lunch pail. Spam sandwich, bruised apple, one hard candy wrapped in waxed paper. Each packed item is a decision measured in coupons and care. She snaps the latch closed. It clicks like a seal on a promise. The radio hums again in the kitchen. Static first, then a clipped voice. Production targets met in the Midlands. Output exceeds expectations. Factories lead the way to victory. The announcer's words march like soldiers, precise, relentless. You listen while pulling on gloves that smell faintly of oil. The words are distant, but the gloves are real. They will grip steel and save skin today. Mrs. Hollis appears at the door again, her scarf tied in a neat triangle. Her son lingers behind, his boots too large. She nods at you, you nod back. No one says much. The whistle will demand enough noise later, but the nod is comfort, a reminder that none of you walk into the storm alone. You take the pail, pull the door shut and feel the latch catch. The house exhales as you leave it behind. The scarf tugs once at your neck as if testing your knot, and the boots bite at your heels until they remember you. Outside, the air smells of coal and damp stone. The street already hums with footsteps. This is dressing for danger. Not silk, not fashion, not anything worth showing in a photograph. But every patch, every knot of string is a decision that says, I am ready. Ready for the machines, ready for the quotas, ready for a day that will ask more than you thought you had. Cold air folds over you as if the morning were a coat someone forgot to warm. Coal smoke lays a thumb across the tongue and leaves it tasting of pennies. Somewhere a cartwheel clicks on a nick into cobble every third turn, the world's simplest metronome. Doors open up and down the terrace like eyelids. Workers spill out in twos and threes, pails and thermoses swinging like small pendulums that already know the hour. Nobody hurries, but nobody dawdles. The whistle is a law older than gossip. You fall into the current, shoulder to shoulder with people you could name by their footfalls alone. Mr. Pike's right heel drags after the accident with the lathe. Ellie Carter's steps come quick as if she's always counting to 10. The Hollis boy tromps in boots that will fit him next winter and blister him this week. Frost feathers the curbstones. Your breath plumes, unspooling into the air and vanishing like a rumour that never found ears. A warden tips his cap and studies window seams, hunting for the thin blade of light that breaks rules and hearts in equal measure. Your mother's pins hold, your window passes. The bakery queue bends around the corner in a polite, determined ration books open to the right leaf like hymnals. Chalk on slate, national loaf today. Barley rolls if early, no buns. Inside, loaves squat shoulder to shoulder, grey as honest rain. A child stares at a shelf where chocolate used to be, and quits staring when her mother squeezes her hand twice. Propaganda posters turn brick walls into loud mouths. A woman in coveralls shows her arm with a quiet smile you borrow for courage. A giant ear leans toward two silhouettes and the letters shout, "Loose lips sink ships." Another wants your kitchen fat for bombs and draws its request in cheerful red. Colour insists on winning against winter, if only by stubbornness. From an upstairs window a gramophone spills a tune slightly too fast, as if eager to be out in the air. Roll Out the Barrel tumbles into the street and people don't sing but their shoulders loosen a notch. Songs have learned to walk beside silence without stepping on its toes. Mrs. Hollis holds her thermos close as if it were a warm thought. Garden's throwing up winter carrots the size of a bishop's finger, she says. You answer that your onions have taken to the clay after sulking for months. Victory gardens are not hobbies. They're insurance policies that also taste like pride. A handcart rattles past stacked high with metal that has retired from its first life. Pots without handles. A bicycle frame bowed like an old man. Railings pried from a stoop that looks naked without its iron moustache. Get in the scrap, the placard says, and the street believes it for the space of a smile. At the grocer, a cardboard sign makes itself useful. Is your journey really necessary? Another beside the till explains how to strain drippings. Glass jars gleam like dutiful soldiers, waiting to be surrendered to the butcher's back room. Bombs out of breakfasts, indeed. 2 school children step wide around a crater patched long ago but still telling its story. They don't stare. They hop it like a puddle and carry on arguing about whether powdered eggs are sorcery or punishment. You want to tell them they are both. A lamplighter ticks by on his bicycle, tools clinking like shy bells. The lamps are hooded and dim, but routines refuse surrender. The city keeps its manners even in the dark. He nods at you as if you were colleagues commuting to different fronts. You pass the cinema where the posters display not kisses but bond drives. The ticket window wears dust like a veil. Tonight they'll run newsreels of ships sliding into water as if they always meant to live there. People will clap for steel and feel better afterward. You will be at work. A harmonica tries. It's a long way to Tipperary, and misses, then gets it right. The tune snags a grin from the sternest face on the pavement. Music is the only ration never issued and never short. Gossip stitches itself between steps. Butter rumoured for next month if the docks cooperate. American soldiers said to be billeted near the racecourse. A cousin wrote from Sicily. Dust like flour and stars like holes in a black tarp. Truth is a guest. Rumour is a tenant. You touch the rabbit's foot tied inside your pocket. You don't believe in it, except that you do. The floor forgives nothing and takes quickly. A small superstition weighs less than fear and works nearly as well. A boy who ought to be in school strolls with his shoulders squared to look older. He's on afternoons now, he says, hauling crates. His palms shine with a new gloss of blisters, badges he shows without showing. You tell him double knot, always double knot. He says he does. He will. At the corner, the church notice board offers times for services and for the nursery in the hall below. Strollers line the railings at 10 because shifts do not adjust themselves to babies. Women carry lunch pails in one hand and the world in the other. When the door opens, the smell of porridge makes even the stairwell feel kinder. A Red Cross table catches coins with a satisfying clink. The volunteer's smile is the kind that doesn't break when the wind hits it. You put in 3 coppers and a wish. Wishes are always accepted even if they don't count in the total. Be the river. Cranes bow and rise like tall, awkward birds practicing respect. Barges bump shoulders and mutter to one another in wooden voices. Men in caps coil ropes with the speed of second nature. Everything that floats will carry something needed somewhere else. Your work will climb aboard inside a crate and never write to say where it landed. A bus screeches by with its headlamps painted into thin cat's eyes. Rubber is dear. The tyres look as tired as everyone else. Through the fogged glass you can see faces not looking at anything, saving their eyes for later. You stop with half the street to let a column of bicycles stream past like water poured from a bright tin. They wear trousers tucked into socks and resolve tucked into collars. Pedalling is cheaper than petrol and kinder to coupons. The rider's breath rises in white commas and dissolves. Someone has chalked a map of hopscotch near the curb, the squares careful and large. A girl in a too big coat hops the grid with a solemnity that looks like prayer. She lands on heaven and beams as if she had invented it. You make a private note to bring her a marble if one turns up in a drawer that has not been inventoried lately. The smell of the tannery leans around a corner and asks your nose to be brave. You pass. Next corner, coffee, real coffee, from a doorway where Americans laugh loud enough to belong to some other weather. They say ma'am as if it were candy. You say good morning and keep your accent close, a small warm coal in your mouth. At the chemist's window a sign offers wartime colours for lips. Victory red, service pink. Not much changes a face faster than a mouth deciding to be brave in public. Beside it, a smaller card. Tooth powder back in stock Friday. Even enamel needs encouragement. Your street tilts gently toward the factory and the crowd thickens as tributaries join the river. Lunch pails knock like quiet drums. Thermos lids click. Someone coughs, and someone else answers with an extra inch of space, a courtesy learned faster than etiquette. A siren far away tries a single note and gives up. Every head in earshot flicks toward the sky anyway. Habit is a watchdog that sleeps with one ear open. Silence returns wearing the same face it had before, but you've seen it wink. Posters near the works grow sterner the closer you come. Keep it under your hat. Don't talk about what you see here. A painted padlock sits where a mouth ought to be. Secrets feel heavier when written in capital letters. The gates finally shoulder their way into view. Iron uprights soot black and honest. Chimneys behind them paint vertical sentences on the sky and end each one with a smudge. Guards stand with the patience of stones shaped into men. You touch your pass in your pocket to make sure it can still feel you. Paper has a way of going shy at exactly the wrong moment. Its corners are soft from mornings just like this. Your name on it looks official enough to stand up straight. The whistle rolls out of the yard like weather. Long, low, not unkind, but absolutely certain. Conversations pinch themselves off mid-syllable and tuck back into throats for later. Feet find the shorter step that covers more ground. You glance once left, once right. Terrace roofs, a finch pretending not to be cold in the black skeleton of a plane tree. The gold sliver of sun deciding whether this is a day it wants to own. You take a breath bright enough to count as 2 and let it out slow. This is the last soft edge of the morning. Beyond the bars, the world turns into angles and heat and numbers that do not care what you meant, only what you made. You step forward with everyone else because the crowd is a tide, and the tide is also a choice. A good one, a necessary one. The queue compresses gently. Passes rise like a flock of paper birds. The guard's eyes move quick as knitting. He nods or doesn't, and doors in the fence become doors in the day. Your turn, your card. His glance up into your face like a quick weather report. Nod. Inside the yard, the factory's temperature swallows the streets. Oil writes its name on the wind. Crates wear codes like surnames. Forklifts prowl with the concentration of well-fed cats. Somewhere close, a welder throws a hand of sparks into the air and all of them choose to be stars for half a second. You adjust your scarf. You test the double knot at your boot. You feel for the candy you won't eat until the hour that most needs a sweet lie. Then you take the lunch pail's handle in a firm, ordinary hand that will be less ordinary by dusk. The door yawns. Heat and noise roll out as if the building were a lung that never quite empties. Street becomes threshold. Threshold becomes floor. You cross. It isn't a sound so much as a command given shape. Long, low, certain. Every conversation stumbles into silence mid-syllable. Every boot begins to clip the pavement a fraction quicker. The crowd thickens like water pulled toward a drain. Lunch pails knock against thighs in a syncopated rhythm. Thermos lids click once, twice, then disappear into pockets. Nobody looks at the sky, but every body moves with the certainty that the day has been called to order. The factory gates loom into view, tall, soot-dark iron bars that pretend to be ordinary until you stand before them. Beyond, the chimneys are already awake, writing black verticals into a pale sky. The brick walls crouch behind them, wide and heavy as if they know the secret that victory depends on them. Signs flare above the entrance in paint bold enough to outshout thought. Keep it under your hat. Don't talk about what you see here. Careless talk costs lives. The words are sharp as teeth. You feel them catch in your spine even though you've read them 100 mornings. 2 guards stand at the gap. Their coats are neat, their caps angled, their gloved hands holding passes like priests with prayer cards. They glance, they nod, they wave forward. The line advances in stutters, paper rising and falling like a flock of pale birds. Your hand finds the pass in your pocket. The paper is soft at the corners, creased where it bends against your hip each day. Your name stares up, practiced and proper. For a moment you wonder if it looks official enough. Then the guard's eyes lift to your face, linger a beat, and nod. Breath returns as if loaned back to you. Inside the yard the air changes. It grows hotter, sharper, thicker. Oil lives here, and steel, and the weight of 100 engines in progress. Forklifts grunt like bulls pushing through narrow lanes. Trucks growl over cobbles, their crates marked with stencils, letters and numbers that spell destinations you'll never see. A welder near the wall strikes his torch and flings sparks into daylight. For an instant they masquerade as fireworks. Then they vanish against brick and smoke. The yard does not celebrate, it only demands. Workers flow toward the doors in steady lines. Boots thud in rhythm. Coats loosen under the first press of heat. Scarves are tugged once more at the knot, checked against the safety posters etched in memory. No one speaks. The machines are already speaking, and they are louder than men. You adjust your pail in your grip. Feel for the hard candy wrapped inside like a secret for later. Test the double knot of your bootlaces one more time. Small rituals for a day that will be nothing but large demands. The doors gape open, spilling noise and light into the yard. The roar swells until it is not just heard but worn. You step with the others across the threshold, leaving behind frost and rumour, stepping into fire and iron. The whistle still rings in your bones. The day has claimed you now. Sound hits first, not with ears but with ribs. A wall of hammering, pressing, whirring, the clatter of conveyors and the hiss of steam. Noise stacks on noise until it becomes a weather system. A hard, bright storm you have to walk into. Someone once said it was like standing inside a drum. You think it's more like standing inside a heart that refuses to stop. Heat follows. Not the kind that warms, the kind that insists. Furnaces exhale, welders flare, motors shed warmth as if it were a byproduct like shavings. Even your teeth feel it. as if heat could choose bones for a residence. Light is wrong in here. Fluorescents buzz like hornets. Their white is too sharp for morning. Welding arcs throw sudden blue-white suns that bloom and die, leaving bright ghosts that hang behind your eyelids. Shadows don't behave, stretching sideways, jumping when belts turn, crouching under gantries like animals that know to keep low. Smell is a catalogue. Hot oil, cutting fluid, scorched paint, singed wool, damp timber from packing crates, metal dust so fine it tastes like a coin melted on the tongue. Later you will carry it home and wash it off and it will still remain, a watermark no soap can bully. The floor itself trembles. Machinery anchors into concrete, and the concrete answers like a drum skin tuned too tight. Your boots learn to expect a small shiver at each step. After a week you stop steadying yourself with your hands. After a month you stop noticing you ever did. You join the funnel toward the clockers. Punch cards live in neat rows like teeth. Mouths of the machines bite time into them with a heavy, satisfying clunk. The foreman presides with a clipboard that looks like law. He doesn't watch faces, he watches figures. Figures are the only faces he's paid to know. A chalkboard hangs beside the office door, numbers tall as fence posts. Yesterday's output, today's target. A line graph that climbs the wall like ivy, January to December, notch by relentless notch. Someone has drawn a tiny bomber at the end of the curve. The wingspan floats just above the word victory. To the left, presses, big-jawed, green-painted, greased at the joints like living things. To the right, lathes that turn and turn, metal turning to ribbon under patient blades. Beyond them, assembly bays where ribs become wings, wings become air. The nearest bay holds a row of engines, black and silver, sleeping beasts with their throats open for wires. You pass a poster at eye level. Don't let safety take a holiday. Another shows hair snatched into gears, a red scream of a picture with the caption, "Tuck it, pin it, keep it." A third says, "Report every accident." Underneath, someone has penciled, "Smaller, if there is time." The pencil line survives 2 washings of the wall because truth is hard to paint over. Women in scarves stand shoulder to shoulder with men in caps. 1 in 3 faces here wears lipstick the colour of decision. 1 in 3 hands was used last year to wash nappies and this year to lift castings. The posters called them, the wages kept them. The work respects them without knowing how to say so. A crane squeals along an overhead track carrying a crate banded with steel. The rigger walks beneath with palms up as if blessing it forward. On the crate a stencil reads AM42 Wing, letters and numbers that could be a prayer if you whispered them at night. Names cling to stations the way steam clings to rafters. Rosie's Row for the riveters. The choir for the welders who hiss and flare in antiphon. Piano for the bench where a mechanic's hands move so fast on torque wrenches it looks like music. You learn the map because the map will soon be you. The line foreman, Mr. Dawes, cap brim low enough to cut weather, waves you toward your island of concrete. Your machine waits with its lever quiet, die open like a mouth ready to be fed. You lay your gloves on the bench the way a sailor coils line, carefully so luck notices. Rag to the jaws, touch of oil, check the guard, test the stop, tug the emergency bar to feel the certainty in it. Ritual is just experience written into the hands. Elsie 2 places down points with her chin. On her column, chalk tallies stack like fence pickets, yesterday's race with the man opposite. She grins, taps the chalk behind her ear, and mouths after break. You nod. Even games obey the whistle here. Margaret on your left hums the same 3-note hymn you first heard in the queue months ago. The notes fit inside the press cycle so snugly you're sure she chose them for that reason. She never gets beyond the 3rd bar. She never needs to. A boy no older than the Hollis lad staggers past with a crate of fasteners. The crate says 48 pounds. His shoulders say 80. He tries on a grin he can't yet keep, and you take one end of the crate to let him grow into it. He thanks you with his eyes because his mouth has not found the breath. The shift captain blows a short whistle that vanishes into the roar by the time it reaches the wall. It doesn't have to carry far, it only has to touch the nearest few and the rest ripple outward by sight. Hands find levers, feet settle on pedals, breaths square themselves into a box that will fit the next 10 hours. First sheet up to the die, edges against the stops, wrist flat, fingers arched, the shape of a safe hand. You touch the work with your eyes before your palms commit. Lever down, press kisses steel, a deep, intimate thud you feel at the joints. Release. The piece comes away with a warm ache in it, as if it remembers pressure. Again and again. The pattern settles. Feed, align, press, lift, slide. A 4-beat measure you could tap with a spoon on a tabletop, and anyone who works here would name it in 3 taps. On the far wall a banner reads "Every minute counts." Someone, fast, neat, has chalked smaller beneath it. Every finger too. The small letters are a rumour of mercy in a room that mostly knows math. Numbers creep into the head while the hands work. In 1939 there were engines in the low thousands. By last year, wings stacked in fields because pilots were the only thing a factory couldn't make enough of. This year's target is painted on a board high on the office wall and covered with glass as if a photograph. The foreman taps it with his pencil when he passes, a metronome no one can ignore. The safety man's cart rattles by. Bandages, iodine, tape, a book whose spine is cracked at lacerations minor. He nods to Margaret, to you, to Elsie, counting in his head the places where blood has been this month. Accidents are a number 2. Lower, never low enough. A welder's torch coughs. Sparks peel off in orange coins. The man behind the mask moves like someone writing a signature he's practiced 1,000 times. Under the flare, his hands are calm. Calm is contagious, like laughter, like fear. You catch it when you can. Somewhere up the line a press misfeeds. The wrong sound rips through the noise. Metal pleading. 3 heads turn, 4, a dozen, then nobody looks because nobody can help from here. After a beat, the music of the line resumes at full volume. Your hands tighten on the lever without instruction. Margaret's hymn steadies. Elsie chalks a first slender mark. The boy with the crate returns empty and stands an inch taller for having survived it. The foreman's pencil scratches a note that will become a number that will become a meeting in a room you will never see. A runner trots past with a message. Fuel allotment revised. Overtime likely this weekend. He says it once at the end of a row and the news travels, mouth to ear, like sparks that decide not to burn. Nobody cheers, nobody groans. The line merely tightens its belt and keeps walking. You build a small country at your feet, scrap bin to the left, parts tray to the right, oil can north, rag south. Everything reachable without asking the spine to vote. By mid-morning the country will have borders, customs, a system of roads. By evening it will be reduced to landmarks, the place where the rag fell, the shadow where you kept your candy until the right minute. A supervisor from upstairs, necktie, clean cuffs, walks the aisle with a visitor in a hat that looks expensive. He points, names things, throughput, downtime, yield. You hear only the pride in the verbs even when the nouns are tired. The visitor nods as if numbers were a chorus he already knows the words to. At your elbow, the part stack grows. At the station ahead, a woman with forearms like a rower's takes them one by one and turns them into something more exact. Her hands touch edges the way a midwife touches a new skull, tender and uncompromising at once. Across from her, a boy drives rivets, the gun chattering like bad teeth in winter, then purring when it finds the sweet spot. Time changes texture. Minutes start as gravel, then settle to sand, then melt to a kind of syrup that runs only when you don't watch it. You learn not to watch. You watch the piece instead, the next, this small proof that work can be true. Someone starts a tune 3 rows over, just the top of it, a whistle without melody until the second bar arrives. You don't know the song until you do. It fits the presses better than last week's. It fits your hands now too. When the first hour slips its moorings, you feel it not on the clock but in the ache settling behind your shoulder blades. When the second comes, sweat finds the line of your spine and travels it like a road going home. By the third, your gloves are part of you, and the machine is an argument you have learned to win. And still this is only the beginning. A morning is a ship you launch piece by piece until at last it floats on noise and heat and habit. You stand on its deck, hand to the lever, eyes on the next mark. Somewhere far away, engines like the one you helped to shape will lift, and the air will agree to carry them. For now, the floor carries you. For now, the factory's heart keeps time and your hands keep faith. The machine becomes your metronome. Feed, align, press, release. Metal sings in 4-beat time, a steady percussion that drowns thought but sharpens muscle. Your arms remember what your mind needn't hold. Across the row, Elsie has already scratched 3 chalk marks onto her column. She winks as if each stroke were a wager. Competition keeps fatigue at bay, even when the scoreboard is nothing but a factory wall. Margaret hums her 3-bar hymn again. This time you catch yourself moving with it, pedal and lever in sync with her tune. It's less a song than a thread, weaving through the noise, stitching strangers into comrades. A rivet gun barks on the far bay. The vibration crawls through the floor, a sharp reminder that every piece here belongs to a larger skeleton. Each press, each cut, each weld is a rib, a wing, a tendon for something that will fly away and never right back. Posters glare from every post and wall. Eyes on the job. One slip could cost a life. You want to look away but can't. They're designed to follow you. The one with the mangled hand stares longest, the red ink bleeding like it knows the truth. The boy with the crate returns, now carrying a clipboard nearly as tall as he is. He checks off numbers in pencil strokes too faint for this room. The foreman claps his shoulder without looking down, a gesture more habit than kindness. The boy straightens anyway, proud to be counted. Time turns thick. The second hour crawls, the third limps. You measure it not by clocks but by sweat soaking the scarf at your neck, by the ache growing between your shoulders, by the blister forming under the glove seam. Elsie snaps her gum. The sound cracks like a rifle shot, and 3 heads turn before laughter shakes it off. Relief tastes better than tea. It's the only luxury the line permits. The foreman makes his round, pencil tapping the chart. He doesn't speak. The pencil says enough. The line is behind. It always is, even when it isn't. The crane squeals overhead with another load, and for a moment everyone lifts their eyes as though watching a comet. It swings slow, too slow, deliberate as if daring you to notice. When it passes, shoulders return to their machines. You think of the street outside, of gossip and gardens, of loaves that will already be gone from shelves. Inside here, bread is steel and yeast is sweat, and patience is the only thing that rises. The whistle for mid-morning break is still far off, but you can feel the need for it in your bones. Hands ache for a pause, throats for tea, hearts for the sight of light through a doorway. Until then, the rhythm holds, the rhythm demands, the rhythm wins. The whistle cuts not like a blade, but like a bandage ripped off. Sudden, sharp, almost cruel, yet beneath the sting, a promise. Hands pull back from levers as if strings had been cut. Boots scuff, gloves come off, backs arch in a dozen slow stretches. Noise doesn't vanish, it just slides a notch lower, like thunder retreating across hills. You follow the stream toward the break room. It isn't a room so much as a long hall with benches bolted to the floor and paint peeling from damp corners, but it has walls, and walls keep out the roar, and for 15 minutes that feels like a miracle. The air smells of tea, always tea, and tin lunch pails opening. Spam sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, margarine spread thin as honesty, carrots pulled from Victory Gardens, slices of beetroot dyed into crimson flags. A woman 2 benches down unwraps a heel of national loaf and sighs as if the bread itself were tired. You pour tea from your thermos. It's thin, tannin bitter, but it scalds the tongue just right. The Red Cross canteen mug in your hand feels heavier than tin, heavy with the idea of kindness carried in steel. The sip warms places that heat from machines never reaches. Elsie chews with the vigour of someone determined to trick her body into thinking it's satisfied. Between bites she leans over. Bet you a penny I hit 60 before the bell. You raise your mug in a half salute. Wagers keep the day moving as surely as belts and pulleys. Margaret pulls a boiled sweet from her pocket. It's paper twisted neat. She sets it in her mouth and closes her eyes. For half a second she isn't here. She might be in a cinema seat or on a Sunday walk or simply a girl again before the war began. When her eyes open, the sweet is gone, but the calm lingers. A man from the welding bay lights a cigarette. 2 others lean in for a drag, passing it hand to hand like contraband communion. The smoke rises into the rafters, blending with old stains, becoming part of the building's breath. Doctor says it's bad for me, he mutters. Doctor's not on the quota, comes the answer. At the end of the table, gossip blossoms like steam. A cousin wrote from North Africa, sand everywhere, engines choking on grit. Someone heard the Yanks are sending chocolate, real chocolate, to the docks. Someone else swears the butcher promised liver next week. Hope and rumour share the same lunchbox. You unwrap your sandwich. Spam again, salty, soft at the edges. You chew without complaint because complaint doesn't fill the stomach. A boy nearby eats nothing, only sips water. He shrugs when asked, saving coupons for his mum. Nobody argues. Instead, Margaret slides him half a carrot and he eats it like treasure. A chalkboard on the wall lists accidents this month. 4 cuts, 3 burns, 1 crushed hand. The numbers don't change during break, but you read them anyway, as if they might shrink if stared at long enough. Someone jokes, "We'll beat last month's tally yet." Nobody laughs. The whistle blows again, shorter, sharper. Cups are drained, wrappers folded, cigarettes stubbed. 15 minutes have been spent like ration coupons, quickly, carefully, never enough. The benches scrape back. Bodies stand. The storm outside the walls waits for you, patient and endless. Elsie snaps her gum once, loud as a starter pistol. Margaret hums her 3 bars. You close your tin, feel the candy still waiting for later, and join the tide. Work calls and you answer. The second half of the shift begins like a hill already climbed once. Your boots find the floor heavier now, as if concrete has thickened since break. The whistle lingers in your ears, not sharp anymore but dull, like the ache behind a bruise. Hands return to levers, feet to pedals, shoulders to the yoke of repetition. The machine welcomes you back without mercy. Feed, align, press, release. The 4-beat rhythm quickens, not in speed but in demand. Each piece feels heavier, not by weight but by time. You wonder how many thousands of parts stand between now and the bell. Heat grows thick as soup. Sweat stings your eyes, gathers in your gloves, soaks the scarf at your neck. The air smells sharper now, burned oil, hot metal, the acrid bite of ozone where welding torches carve their light. Even breathing feels like work. Quotas hang over the floor like storm clouds. The chalkboard numbers glare down. Yesterday's line underlined twice. Today's target circled in red. The foreman's pencil taps against his clipboard with the certainty of a ticking bomb. Nobody speaks of it, but every hand hurries. Every press lands with more force. Fatigue becomes its own hazard. Elsie nearly feeds a sheet crooked. Her hand jerks back just before the jaws close. She grins too quickly, hiding the fright, then chalks her mark with exaggerated flourish. The grin fools no one. The mark fools everyone who needs to believe. At the Riveter's bay, the gun stutters wrong. A hiss, a crack, then silence too sharp for comfort. 2 men rush in, tools raised, faces already braced for blood. The boy with the crate stands frozen, mouth open, but luck holds. Just a jam, no hand lost. Still, the silence tastes like iron until the gun sputters back to life. Margaret hums her 3 bars again, louder this time, as if to stitch the room back together. You join her under your breath, the tune threading into the rhythm of the press. It helps, a little, not enough. Accident posters leer from the wall. One shows a missing finger, captioned "Carelessness Costs." Another depicts a family waiting at home, the father's chair empty, the message too clear to miss. Eyes slide away from them, but only after reading. Everyone reads, every time. The foreman walks the aisle, shoes clicking sharp. He stops by Margaret, checks her tally, nods once. Stops by Elsie, raises an eyebrow at her chalk marks, moves on. When he reaches you, his pencil hovers over your column. The pause feels longer than a breath, then shorter than a thought. He nods, writes something you cannot see, and moves on. By mid-afternoon, the line has settled into a trance. Noise becomes background, like rain falling too steady to notice. Hands obey without asking permission from the mind. The body knows the work better than thought ever could. Time doesn't pass, it accumulates, like filings in a tray. Elsie finally wins her bet, hitting 60 before you. She flashes a grin, teeth white against the smudge of grease on her cheek. "Penny, please." You hand it over without a word, glad for the excuse to laugh. The sound lasts only a breath, but in this room, a breath is gold. The whistle for afternoon tea is still far off. Your back already aches, your palms sting, your shoulders grind like old gears, but the line does not stop. Not for ache, not for sting, not for anything but the bell. And so you press, and press, and press again. Each thud another heartbeat for a war fought oceans away. Each piece another wing, another rib, another fragment of something that will fly into skies you'll never see. The whistle blows again, merciful and brief. This time the sound feels less like release and more like permission. Permission to stop before something inside you does. Levers are dropped mid-cycle, gloves peeled away, shoulders unspool like springs easing their tension. The tide of bodies rolls towards the break hall once more. The benches welcome you back with splinters and scratches you already know by touch. Tin mugs clatter, flasks hiss, pails open with the sigh of latches. The smell is the same as morning. Tea, margarine, spam, onions from a garden that fought clay and won. But now fatigue has seasoned everything with salt, sweat and silence. You pour the last of your thermos into your mug. The tea is weaker, the colour nearer to dust than earth, but it carries warmth where it needs to go. One sip, then another. Each swallow feels like time earned. Elsie unwraps a sandwich that looks no different than yours, but she bites it as though it were feast day. She grins, teeth sharp with stubborn cheer. You watch. Tomorrow they'll have chocolate at the docks. You laugh, not because you believe her, but because you want to. Margaret shares her last boiled sweet. She breaks it in half with her teeth and presses the smaller piece into your palm before you can argue. It melts quick, sugar sharp, a tiny rebellion against the ration book. For a minute you are a child again, the war far away. Rumours circle the benches faster than hands can eat. A cousin in the Home Guard wrote that Sicily is nearly won. Another swears American soldiers are landing closer every day. Someone insists petrol coupons will stretch next month. Someone else says they won't. Hope and dread share the same spoon, stirring the same pot. At the far table, a group huddles over the day's paper. Headlines roar of raids, of victories, of losses carefully rephrased into near wins. Pictures of bombers gleam black and white, their wings wide as the benches you sit on. No one speaks too loudly. Walls here, like everywhere, have ears. A Red Cross volunteer wanders through, balancing a tray of steaming mugs. Not free, not cheap, but welcome. She smiles at every table, and her smile is worth more than the tea. Coins clink, cups trade hands, gratitude muttered in voices rough from dust. A man at the end of your bench lights another cigarette, passing it to the left. The smoke drifts, blue and heavy, curling toward the rafters. He exhales and mutters, "Berlin won't build itself." Laughter rolls thin, more habit than humour. You unwrap what's left of your lunch. Half a carrot, a heel of bread. It fills less than it should, but enough to move the clock forward. The boy with the crate chews on a single apple slice, smiling as if it were an orchard. You nod at him, and he nods back, both of you pretending abundance. The whistle blows again, shorter, sharper. Tea is drained, crumbs brushed away, wrappers folded. The bench is empty with the same inevitability as tides retreating from shore. Outside, the factory hums louder, impatient for hands to return. Margaret hums her 3 notes before she even stands. Elsie flicks her chalk stub into her palm like a gambler shuffling dice. You rise, shoulders stiff, back aching, but feet moving. The day isn't done yet. The line waits, and the war waits with it. The factory swallows you again as if the walls were a mouth and you a returning morsel. The roar resumes at full pitch, so loud the silence of the break feels like a dream. Hands find levers, boots brace on pedals, shoulders hunch back into place. The rhythm restarts without asking, as if you never left. By now the floor is hotter, darker, thicker. The afternoon sun leans through high windows filtered through grime, turning the light into long grey slants. dust and steam hang in the air like ghosts too tired to vanish. Sweat pools at your collar and makes your shirt cling like a second skin. Quotas loom larger with every thud of the press. The chalkboard numbers glare down, circled twice in red. The foreman's pencil taps the margin of his clipboard, a metronome that mocks the machines. Nobody says it aloud, but everyone knows you're behind. Not dangerously yet, but behind is a slope, and slopes grow steeper. Elsie works with her jaw clenched, chalk tally climbing faster than sense. Her scarf slips once, she tugs it back, eyes flashing with the memory of posters that show what happens when cloth meets gears. Margaret hums louder, 3 bars repeated until they sound like a prayer. You grip your lever tighter, the ache in your wrists becoming another tally no one counts. Accidents hover in the air the way smoke does. Near misses stack like coins. A rivet gun jamming, a crate almost slipping, sparks landing too close to an unprotected sleeve. Each one lasts a second, but the memory lingers far longer, stamped into thought. The posters on the wall are not warnings anymore, they are mirrors. The boy with the crate stumbles under a load too heavy. You catch one end before it tips, steadying him with a glance. His lips tremble, but he nods, straightens, carries on. He will not give the floor the satisfaction of seeing him fail. Pride is a ration too, and some spend it carefully. The machines demand faster. Feed, align, press, release. The rhythm tightens, heartbeat quickening. You work quicker, your body tricked into belief that time will stretch if you move fast enough. But time does not stretch. It snaps. And when it snaps, accidents wait. At the welding bay, a shout pierces the storm. For a moment the line falters, heads turn. A sleeve caught fire, just a lick of flame, quick as a snake, but quick as enough. The safety man barrels in, blanket smothering, smoke coughing into the rafters. The worker emerges shaken but whole. The hum of machines resumes, swallowing the moment. Still, you feel it in your spine, the thin edge you all balance on. The foreman's voice carries down the aisle, sharp and clipped. Push it forward. We're not stopping for anything less than blood. It isn't cruelty, it's creed. The war demands steel, not mercy. But mercy has a place here in glances, in small nods, in the way you catch a crate for a boy. By the 6th hour, fatigue is an animal perched on your shoulders. It gnaws at your neck, breathes hot on your ear. You feed, align, press, release, and each motion feels like dragging stone uphill. Your gloves are damp, your back screams, your knees wobble when you shift weight, but the line doesn't slow, it never slows. Elsie nearly loses another piece to misfeed. You see her knuckles whiten, her teeth grit, and then the part slides through clean. She exhales with a laugh too high to be steady. I'll owe you that penny back if I keep this up. You grin despite yourself, because humour is the last line of defence. Margaret hums on, and this time you join her. Others do too. The line becomes a choir, not tuneful, not pretty, but unified. It isn't music, it's survival. A sound to keep the machines from believing they are the only voices here. And through it all the numbers rise. Each press a digit, each rivet a sum, each weld a promise. The tally climbs the chalkboard like ivy up a wall. Behind or ahead, the war doesn't care. It only asks for more. You think of bombers being built, of wings stacking in rows, of engines roaring to life far from here. The thought steadies your hand, even as your body protests. Because in this room, in this noise, in this endless grind, you are part of something larger than fatigue, larger than accident, larger even than yourself. Still, the day isn't done, and the line waits, relentless, patient, merciless, until the final whistle declares victory, if only for the night. The final hour begins not with a whistle, but with a feeling, an invisible weight settling across the shoulders of the whole floor. You can sense it in the slower bends of backs, in the way gloved hands shake out wrists between cycles, in the half-lidded eyes fixed on machines as if staring long enough might shorten time. The end is near, but near can feel further away than dawn. Heat has grown thick enough to taste. The air is a stew of oil and dust, sweat and smoke. Every breath drags across your throat like rough cloth. Even the machines sound tired, their clatter deeper, hollower, as though echoing their operator's bones. Fatigue makes fools of even the steady. Elsie fumbles a chalk stub, dropping it into the grease-slick floor. She curses under her breath and chalks a mark with her finger instead, smearing dust into a crooked tally. Margaret's hymn falters, her 3 bars breaking into 2 before she forces them whole again. The boy with the crate has slowed. His arms sag under weight he carried earlier with pride. The foreman's pencil snaps mid-note. He replaces it without a word, but the sound carries louder than the machines. Everyone hears it, everyone feels it. The quota must be met, and the last hour is where numbers either fall short or surge ahead. Accidents stalk closer now, sensing weakness. A glove nearly caught in a roller, a sleeve brushing too close to a hot rivet, a spark kissing unprotected skin. Each one passes in a heartbeat, leaving behind only the taste of fear. Nobody speaks of them, but everyone knows the tally could change in a blink. Your own body rebels. Wrists ache, back stiffens, knees tremble under each shift of weight. But the rhythm demands obedience. Feed, align, press, release. The 4-beat cycle continues, a drumbeat against exhaustion. The machine does not care that you are tired, it only cares that you are present. Elsie leans toward you, voice rough. 5 more pieces and we beat yesterday. Her grin is strained, but it holds. You nod, finding strength in her stubbornness. Together you press harder, faster, chasing not just numbers but pride. Margaret begins her hymn again, louder this time. Others join in, off-key, off-tune, but together. It becomes less a song than a shield, a sound wall raised against the weight of the final hour. Even the boy with the crate hums as he staggers past, his load lighter for the tune. The quota looms like a mountain, and you climb with every press. One more, another. Elsie's chalk marks climb faster, crooked but determined. Your own tally rises, sweat smearing the lines but never erasing them. Then, at last, the whistle. Long, low, final. The sound pierces the hall, slicing through noise, fatigue and rhythm all at once. Levers are dropped, pedals released, gloves tossed aside. The machines exhale and fall silent, their hunger paused until morning. You straighten slowly, back groaning, arms heavy. The chalkboard still stands, numbers scrawled high enough to pass. The quota met, barely, but met. And in this place, in this war, meeting the number is its own kind of victory. Around you, the line breathes as one. Elsie wipes grease from her forehead and grins without words. Margaret hums the last 3 notes softly, a benediction for the shift. The boy with the crate collapses onto a bench, smiling through exhaustion, too tired to notice the pride glowing in his face. The day has ended. The machines rest, and tomorrow it will all begin again. The gates open like jaws releasing their catch. The crowd spills out, slow at first, then gathering pace as the cold evening air meets hot skin. The factory's roar fades behind you, replaced by a softer chorus. Boots on cobbles, murmured goodnights, the rustle of scarves pulled tighter against the chill. Dusk drapes itself across the rooftops. Windows glow faintly through blackout curtains, slivers of yellow stitched into the grey. The smell of coal smoke rises sharper now, fireplaces sparking to life, chimneys writing crooked lines against the darkening sky. The world outside feels both familiar and strange, as though the hours inside were another country. Elsie walks at your side, her laughter thin but real. Beat the quota, didn't we? That's worth a pint if the pub's had anything left worth pouring. She tucks her chalk stub behind her ear like a trophy. You nod, too tired for words but grateful for her voice holding the silence at bay. Margaret peels off toward the church hall where mothers collect their children from the nursery. The little ones tumble into tired arms, some already asleep, others chattering about porridge and play. Work and home meet here in the shadow of the steeple, stitched together by necessity. The boy with the crate drifts past, shoulders drooped, steps uneven, but his face carries a grin too wide for his exhaustion, as though pride alone holds him upright. You clap his back and he straightens, if only for a few paces more. Street lamps glow dim through their painted hoods, casting more suggestion than light. A warden cycles by, cap low, lantern strapped to the handlebars. He calls out reminders about blackout checks. Doors slam, windows dim further, the city tucking itself into shadow against dangers in the sky. Queues still form outside the bakery and grocer, ration books in hand. Loaves are scarce, carrots scarcer, meat scarce as miracles. Yet the lines hum with conversation, whispers of sons abroad, of postcards from Sicily, of rumours that next month might bring butter. Hope is the cheapest ration and the most abundant. A gramophone drifts through an open window. The tune is scratchy, thin but sweet. We'll meet again. Voices falter, then join, humming along as boots carry them through the streets. For a moment song belongs to everyone, carried on the night air like a promise. Your own house waits at the end of the row, curtains drawn, a faint glow at the edges. The latch clicks under your hand, the door sighs open. Inside, the smell of onions and potatoes greets you, thin stew stretching to fill bowls. The smallness of it is a comfort. You hang your scarf, unlace boots that ache to be free, and lower yourself into the familiar chair. The day's noise lingers in your bones, each heartbeat still echoing the press of steel. But here, the walls are quiet. Here the war feels further away, if only by a street's width. You sip tea gone cool, close your eyes, and let exhaustion settle like a blanket. Tomorrow the whistle will call again, the line will demand again, and the machines will roar again. But for tonight, you are home, and that is victory enough. The day you lived is one of millions. Each shift stacked on the next like rivets on a wing, unnoticed alone but essential together. From 1939 to 1945, factories like yours became battlefields of another kind. Here, the weapons were presses and welders. The casualties were fingers, backs, and time. The victories were counted not in ground gained but in engines shipped, planes flown, ships launched. In 1939, America built just over 2,000 aircraft. By 1944, the number reached 96,000. A miracle of steel, sweat, and stubbornness. Britain and Canada turned their factories into arsenals too, women in scarves and men too old for the front producing the tools their sons and daughters would need overseas. 1/3, sometimes half, of the workers were women. Many had never touched a machine before the war, but propaganda posters called "Wages Kept," and courage carried them through doors where once only men stood. Rosie the Riveter became a symbol, but she was also a neighbour, a sister, a mother, humming a hymn over the roar of the press. Rationing tied the home to the factory. Coupons stretched meals thin, gardens filled the gaps, spam became both joke and staple. Every lunchbox carried the war inside it. Tea in a Red Cross mug, carrots from a victory patch, bread baked to last, not to please. Even scraps had purpose. Fat for bombs, metal for bullets, cloth for bandages. Accidents never stopped. Hands were lost, eyes blinded. Lives ended not by enemy fire, but by machines rushing to build what the enemy would face. Safety posters shouted, but quotas shouted louder. The workers knew the price and paid it daily, and still, the line never stopped. What they built flew far beyond them. Bombers over Europe, fighters in the Pacific, cargo planes dropping supplies where roads were gone, ships that cut through Atlantic wolf packs to bring food and arms. Every press you pulled, every rivet driven, every weld struck, each was a thread in the vast fabric of survival. When the war ended, many workers returned to kitchens, to schools, to offices. Others stayed, proving that once hands had learned steel, they would not easily give it back. The factories shrank, but the memory of their thunder lived on. The war was won not only by soldiers, but by those who fed the machines, until the machines could feed victory. So when you think of those long days, the whistles call, the chalk tallies, the tea gone thin, the ache in your shoulders, the walk home through blackout streets, remember this: the war bent beneath such days, not one day alone, but millions together. And in the quiet after, when factories fell silent, the echoes remained. Not just in steel and numbers, but in the lives saved by what was made in noise and heat. That is what the work was worth.